So welcome officially. My name is Darko, and I will be facilitating this webinar together with Anita De Silva, also somewhere there. Maybe Anita, if you can wave a bit so people can see you, although we have all these white backgrounds, so you can see a little bit who is in the team. I will present the team in a second. Just to tell you, this is the second webinar of European Academy on Youth Work for 2024. We are heading closer to the event in May. But we'll hear about this a little bit later. So there's a group of people behind the webinar. So apart from Anita and myself, who will be facilitating this webinar and also the Academy event for the ones who will be joining us in Kranjska Gora. There's also Sabrina Apit. She will support us in a digital facilitation, making sure that actually Zoom and Padlet and all other things are working. In the team, we also have Nick Paddison, who will be our rapporteur. Yeah, our rapporteur, he takes care of taking all the notes and from all the inputs and ideas gathered in the webinars, but also in the event that will be in Kranjska Gora. And we have also Mireille van Bremen. She has a little bit different background, as you can see there. She's not having this white background of the Academy, but beautiful poster from the first webinar that we did. And Mireille is our graphic recorder, harvester, visual summary person. So what we can see behind her is actually the visual summary of the first webinar. And in case you didn't see it, we advise you actually to look at the website of the Academy and check this beautiful drawing that Mireille did. And also in the team, we have also Sonja Mitter, who is also, of course, the coordinator of the European Academy on Youth Work. And if Sabrina, don't have, or maybe you have a couple of suggestions, I wanted to give her to Sonja. So is there any suggestions maybe for digital side of this?
Just to mention, good morning also from my side, that we are going to use this Zoom where you're already in. So I think that is managed. And plus we use Mentimeter, which you probably already know, and Padlet. So get yourself prepared with any kind of advice you need or whatever. And if there's any problem appearing, just write a message in the chat to my name and we try to solve it.
Mm-hmm.
Have a good webinar.
I hope by now, at least in the last couple of years, everybody's already comfortable with Zoom and all these digital tools. So we don't need to explain that every time in detail. We're still waiting for a couple of people to join from the waiting room. So we are settled. The numbers actually are growing every second. And I would like to pass word back to Sonja to welcome you officially from the Academy.
Good morning, everybody. It's very, very nice to see you here. All of you have received an email from me in the meantime. Indeed, I am coordinating the European Academy on Youth Work, which is a partnership of many national agencies on the topic of innovation in youth work. And as you can see, we're a big team. Obviously, I'm not doing this alone. There are many people supporting this. Yeah, I hope you're having a good time this morning. As Darko already said, it's the second webinar that we're doing this year, and this is part of what we're calling the Academy Online. The residential event is coming up in, well, a bit less than 4 weeks now. But for all those who are not coming to Kranjska Gora in Slovenia for the event, we're also offering, and also for those who are there, I mean, actually it goes in parallel a little bit, and it's complementary to each other. We're offering also some occasions to follow what we're doing online. So this is this webinar, the last one we had last month, and then we're also going to live stream some parts of the Academy event. This will be announced very shortly, if not this week, then next week via our social media and website. And we're also going to have one more webinar after the end of the event in June. So at the So there are main questions that we're looking at during this third Academy on Youth Work, the third cycle of the Academy on Youth Work, if you want, this year. And the focus is really this time on exploring emerging trends and developments and their impact on youth work. And so we're having some main questions that we're looking at. The first ones being, so what emerging trends and developments can we see? How are they relevant for youth work? And what will youth work look like in the future, say in, I don't know, 10, 20 years from now? And these were the questions that we focused on at the first webinar, Futures of Youth Work. And as I think most of us know, when we're looking at what's going on around us, at the development, if we follow what we see emerging, where society is, where the world is going, and what that might mean for us and for our lives and our work with young people and so on, all of this is not necessarily easy to do. It's not easy to understand and to follow to start with, but it's also sometimes emotionally hard to actually cope with what we see happening around us. And also we tend to look more at the past often than actually at the future, because the future, after all, is unknown. It also means dealing with uncertainty, and looking at what is ahead of us is, change, uncertainty, insecurity, and maybe sometimes also emotionally difficult, frustrating, but maybe also sometimes very positive and exciting, because we think maybe we can influence what's happening, we can shape that, respond to what we see happening. And some of the developments might not be negative, might also be exciting and positive to look at. So all in all, what that means is that we think it's also important to look at how we can get prepared actually for looking at the future and for dealing with what is coming our way. Meaning, how can we get ready for future thinking, and how can we act and plan and envision for a future of youth work that we actually do not know? And this question of the mindset that we might need for that is something that we're looking at more closely today at this webinar. So we will look a bit at, so what does it demand of us? How are we actually facing the future? But we're also looking at some kind of hands-on tools and strategies that might be useful for working with young people and youth work in general. So with that, I wish you a really fruitful 2 hours together at this webinar. Thank you very much again for joining. And I hand over to Anita, who will take you further into the topic.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Sonia. Good morning, everyone. I'm going to ask us to have the gallery view so we can look at each other just a little bit. If you can have your camera on, this is something we always invite you to do. I can see already people start to smile. It's like, as soon as we say, look at the camera, oh, everybody's kind of looking into the gallery, seeing smiley faces. I invite you to check the next screen where there's the next batch of 25 people and the next one. It's really nice to see the community here and to see so many people interested in the topic. We're going to be here for 2 hours today. So the webinar finishes at 12 Central European Time. And this is our gang. This is who we get to hang out with this morning, which is, I think, a very privileged thing to do, at least for me. So I'm Anita, I come from Portugal. I'll be facilitating with Darko and with the rest of the team in different capacities. And like Sonia was saying today, we're going to look into what are the competences we need. And when I say we, I'm talking about youth workers, although maybe you are here in another capacity, and that's also okay. What are the competences we need to consider the future? So we are not in the business here of future telling. So if you came here to hear how the future will look like, we're going to start by disappointing you. We don't know. Nobody knows. But we are in the business of let's get ready. Let's get ready to consider the future. So that is the big aim of this webinar, is to start us in this conversation with ourselves and with each other about what kind of mindset, what kind of attitudes, what kind of skills do youth workers need to be developing in order to respond to emerging futures in plural, probably. So we're going to do today is that we're going to be looking at ourselves first with a few questions about, how do I react to the future? And then we're going to do a little exercise that you can actually also use with your colleagues, with young people, about looking at possible future scenarios. And then think, how does that influence today if those scenarios would to happen? So to consider possibilities. And then in the end, we're going to give you a few more resources of places on the web or existing publications where you can find tools to work with young people, with yourself, with colleagues on this topic. How does that sound? Darko is excited. You can tell us with your finger, you can tell us with your virtual finger in the reaction button, or you can say it in the chat. You can also be disappointed. It's allowed. You can say like, wow, I really didn't want that. Somebody's already answering the questions, which is great. We need self-esteem. Yes, we do. And optimism. That is true as well. Very good. So one more kind of transversal goal we have with these webinars is to build this community, build this group of people that are either youth workers or youth work supporters in some capacity. So we would love to know who's in the room. And for that, we're going to start with a short Menti just to gauge who is here and what are your roles. So we have just 3 questions. Yes. And we invite you to go to Menti. So to do that, you can use this QR code, or I guess in the chat there will be, I don't see it now, but you can go to menti.com and use the code that will be shared, or you can use directly a link. Let's give us a little bit of time just to get all that sorted out. People are already joining.
One moment, I need to get in the script because I had another thing copied.
No worries. There it is. So you can use this link here on the chat or the code if you go to the website menti.com, or the QR code when it appears again, or if you already took it. So the first question is, I'm going to read it just to clarify some things. What is your role in youth work? And we know that probably not everybody here is a youth worker, or maybe you don't even know if you're a youth worker or not. Well, for us, if you are working directly with young people as a volunteer or paid full-time or part-time, you're a youth worker and you're very welcome to be here. But maybe you're not a youth worker per se, you don't work directly with the young people. In that capacity, maybe you work in a municipality, maybe you are a policy maker, maybe you are a teacher, a professor, maybe you are all of these and a young person, so they're not mutually exclusive, some of them, maybe a researcher. And here we see already a big part of the group responding. By the way, we are 75 people today here, which I think is very exciting. And we have already more than 50 answers. All right. So it's good to see that we have diversity. We have a lot of youth workers, but also trainers. Others, what is a youth worker supporter? Very good question. We also don't know because it can be many things. So we were thinking of all the people that work in the youth sector and they support youth work in a way. For example, if you work in a municipality or if you coordinate youth programs in an organization. And some of us have those roles that are really important, but not working directly with young people outside of school. So we are calling those youth work supporters in general. And I see some people in the chat sharing some of their thoughts. Program coordinator, but not active trainer. we didn't remember to make that category, but you're very welcome. If that's your role, you're very welcome to be here. This is your place. All right, I think we got most of the answers. Yes, could be an educator as well. Somebody wrote. Okay, shall we go for the next question? And the next question is, have you participated in the European Academy of Youth Work activities before? Maybe some of you are wondering what these are. So the Academy organizes these international face-to-face events. This year will be the third. Maybe you've taken part of that. We call them the Academy. Maybe you have been there, or maybe you have taken part in this kind of webinars before from the Academy. That counts as well, or maybe other activities that have been organized. So we want to know who is a newbie and who is somebody who already knows us. Oh, we have a lot of new people coming over, which is great. Look at this. Very interesting. It's the first time for many of us. This is great. Very cool. So for those who don't know the Academy, there's a beautiful website. If you haven't been there yet, go there and see the activities that are there. There are wonderful resources, research reports, a lot of things about innovation. There's a podcast. Obviously, there's all the social media channels that you can follow to get the news from the Academy right at your email box or at your social media. So very happy to see that we have so many new people with us today. Okay, and then let's jump right into the next one. Next question and last question. Now, the next event, like I said before, the face-to-face event, it's an international conference that will take place in Slovenia this May. And we know that some of us will be there and many of us won't be there. If you have applied and if you have been selected and you're going to be there, if you don't know what I'm talking about, then it's a no. Then you're not joining us probably because it has already started to be organized and everything. But what we want to say is that if you're going to be there, and we see that a lot of us will be there, some of the things you're going to hear today, you're going to hear also in the Academy, maybe more in depth there, maybe with different perspectives, but do expect that there is a little bit of overlap, and that is planned and intentional, that we kind of grow into the topics. And if you, unfortunately, are not joining us in Slovenia in May this year, wink, wink, maybe next year, then it's really good that you're here because you're getting a bit of a taste of what we're going to do there. So you are all very welcome. It will be in presence, Francisco. It will be an event, an academy in Kranjska Gora, in the mountains of Slovenia. But you don't have to worry much because it's going to be streamed partially. It's going to have streaming during some of the sessions while we are there. And also we still have another webinar like this one after the academy, where you can also learn a bit more of what happened there. So we are really trying, we're doing our best to disseminate what's happening in this event, which is obviously limited in terms of capacity, to as many people as we can. All right. So now that we know who is in the room and a bit more about what we're doing today, I'm just going to invite you for a little check-in with your body. Very simple. Just think if you are, if your posture is good, if you're comfortable, if your back is not hurting. We're going to be here for 2 hours, so we should really take care of our bodies as well. Just, maybe you need a pillow in your back. Get that if you need to. Maybe you're crossing your legs 5 times around each other. That's what I normally do. I kind of curl them up. It's not really healthy. Just make sure that your body is in a good place, so that's your brain and your emotions can also be in a good place. All right. So this was a bit of an introduction, and I'll pass the floor so we can start looking at how do we react to thinking of the future. Darko.
Yeah. Thanks a lot, Anita. So even if you're not coming to the event and you've never been to the Academy, on youth work, what we're going to do now is probably relevant for you anyways, and for all of us. And it's all about how do we relate to future? And that question is not so theoretical. You can take it very philosophical on the level of sense of agency and wondering, so how much you can impact the future. So are you you see yourself as more as a creator of the future, or you actually see that you have no impact on the future and you're kind of more receiver, or you see yourself more as a co-creator, something like in between, something you can influence a bit, but then there are things that are beyond our control and so on. So these are interesting questions about how do we relate to future or futures, as Anita said, in plural. So what's emerging? Academy has always been about innovation, and innovation is a lot about how to make things better, how to make them more effective, how to make them more just, how to make them more efficient, how to improve youth work practices. But specifically this year, we're looking more further, a little bit to the future towards 2050. And the first webinar was a lot about that, actually, about future foresight, looking at 2050 and what's ahead of us. And the topic of the future somehow is not, as I said, something theoretical. You can just look at your window, and I'm here in Belgrade, I'm sitting at the 15th floor, and I see the big construction site across the street that just started 2 weeks ago. And for me, this is already a sign of the future, how the city is developing. And immediately when I think about it and when I look at it, I have emotional reactions. So I can like it, I can dislike it, I can hate it, I can love it, I can be against it. And it really puts me in a position, okay, how do I relate to that? Similarly, when you look at youth work and youth work practice, you may also wonder how youth work might change and how youth work might evolve in, let's say, 10, 20, or 30 years. And today we're going to look a little bit like that. So in a way, we can probably not ever get fully ready but for the future, but probably where we can look at inside of us is from which inner place are we meeting the future? Or in other words, what's our mindset? So, and that would be useful to do a little kind of self-assessment. So mindset is not so simple concept in a way. It has a lot to do with our own beliefs about us, about our agency, about how do we see the future, how do we see ourselves, how do we see the world, how we see youth work. But also, as Sonia was mentioning already, maybe do we prefer more to look at the past, or we prefer to look more towards the future? So how do we see these issues? And mindset practically influences our behavior. So mindset is very much something that we can see in what we are doing and the way we are behaving, the way we are relating to what is coming to us as challenges, as questions, as invitations, so to say, from the world around us. And to look at that a little bit, we prepared another Mentimeter, which has 6 scales. So it's a small kind of self-assessment moment. And we will ask you for all these 6 statements to reply for yourself to what extent this statement applies to you and to what extent doesn't apply to you at all. So it's just a little scan about how is your future exploration mindset at the moment. And we look at that together afterwards. Brian, you have a question? Or it was just a hand?
No, I didn't mean to do that. Sorry, I was just looking in the chat. It's an accident.
Yeah, well, welcome. So we look at the 6 scales, and Sabrina will share the Mentimeter again. So what we call future readiness mindset. Of course, it's not the complete picture about this, but just a sample of 6 statements. So take a moment and reply in the Mentimeter to what extent each of the statements apply to you. So from one extreme, it doesn't apply to me at all, to applies to me completely. Just take a few minutes don't think too much, just follow your feeling about how it is for you when you read each of these statements, and to what extent actually you demonstrate, show this in your everyday life. Okay. Thanks a lot. Sabrina, I think you can show the results now. Yeah, thanks a lot. That's already probably when you've been filling in these statements, you can already feel certain pull and push and a little bit emotional reactions inside. And probably some of these statements are quite confrontative, and that's fine. I think that's, we just use them a little bit to stimulate reflection on how future ready, or how much actually looking at the past, or so let's look at that together a little bit. Maybe Anita will share maybe a couple of comments about what we see here. But at the same time, it's an invitation for all of you to look at this big picture, especially on these hills behind the statements. So you can see also, what do you see in this picture when you look at that a little bit in a zoom out way. So maybe I start. So let's say from the first one, and this one is a lot about what exactly are we doing in the academy this year. So we're looking at these trends, societal trends beyond youth work. So technology, education, environment, peace and conflict, and all sorts of other societal issues, meaning that actually the world is not happening in the bubble of youth work. So, and the big societal changes are impacting also not just us directly, but also young people, their lives, their needs, and the changes are there. So one thing about future readiness is actually how much are you aware of these big societal trends and these big issues, big movements, and how they might impact youth work. And this is the poster that is behind EAYW, basically from the last webinar, a lot around these issues, basically the big issues. Maybe Anita, you go for the second.
Sure. I regularly rethink my practice, why and how I do things. And we can see here that there is a quite high prominence of people saying, yes, I actually do that a lot. And I think over the years, I feel that more and more youth work has become a reflective practice. I'm saying over the years because 25 years ago when I started, maybe I wasn't so reflective about my practice, but also because I think there are more and more support to the community, to youth work in Europe. There's more publications, there's more research, there's more. So we kind of became more aware of how important it is to reflect about what we do, to consider different ways of doing, to learning from different sectors, etc. But here, I think, in the context of what we're talking about, there's a specific type of reflection I would like to underline as, I think, an important one, which is to reflect on how we do things, considering the emergent futures. What I mean in practice is, what do I actually do? How the things I do are dialoguing with the current ecological crisis, right? Or how do the projects that I'm running are contributing for more dialogue in Europe, peace education, other things that we see that are probably becoming a priority in our society. So it's this kind of reflection, taking in consideration the emergent trends and the societal current circumstances, I'm going to put like that, and challenges that we are facing ahead. So I think this is a skill. It's not to just think, does it work or not with that young person, with that group, with my student, but does it work in the big picture? What am I contributing to? So I think I'm very happy to see also this curve here like this.
Slajan, you have a comment? Or you just raise your hand?
Thanks a lot. No. I mean, I'm just inspired, but I can wait.
Yeah. No, shoot. If it's related to this particular one, you can say.
This particular. Okay, just my way of interpreting the data. I was thinking like if we regularly, the most of us obviously regularly rethinks our practices, but then look at the bottom of the scale, and we explore new things before making any opinions, right? Then I was thinking, and also reflecting on the previous webinar when, you know, the extensive data were presented, and, you know, it's a serious work supporting this process, right? The research work I was, I mean, so basically, my question is, and maybe reflection, how actually we as youth workers, or, you know, the members of the youth work community of practice, what do we do actually? I'm not sure, also being a researcher, I'm not sure that the research being as complex as it is how to say, quick enough, you know, to provide the data when the youth workers and practitioners are needing the data, you know, in order to make informed decisions. So maybe there is one trunk of, you know, practitioners that are learning by doing, reflecting on practice, and then changing things as they come, you know, going with the flow, more or less. And then, you know, the researchers that are doing their best, but then, you know, sometimes these findings are complicated to understand. The link between practice and research and policy making is not always there, you know, to smooth these and facilitate the information sharing, and so on and so forth. So maybe the question to reflect on is, how can we support, you know, this forward thinking by evidence more efficiently? Sorry if I was a bit confusing.
I appreciate that actually these scales actually raise actually a lot of reflections also from the research side that you represent also somehow here. What we are going to look in the Academy event, we will actually look not only at individual level, but also the collective level. Because this readiness, what you're just speaking about, is not only about individual skills, individual mindset, individual competences, but also how the field as a whole creates conditions and support for such readiness, where I think youth research has to play a big role. But we come back to the event. Let's go to the third scale. So the third scale goes very deep, actually. It's not only about practices, but it's about the core. And no matter what you interpret as core, so for some people, it will be the values, it will be the key principles. For example, people speaking about meaningful conversations with young people, meaningful connections with young people, rights-based approach, maybe for somebody. There will be many, many different things that you consider as a core. But the question here is preserving the core might be necessary and might be needed. But there are moments, there will be moments in the future when there will be a call for transformation and maybe even to change the core as it is now. It's just a reflection there. Which probably touches on the identity of youth work as we know it today. So not only about practices, methods, approaches, principles, but also on the identity. And I think this is something we are also going to explore in the event in Krasnogor, and maybe partially in the exercise today in the second part. So I need to go for the fourth.
Yes. Well, on this one, I just wanted to note something, which is these waves that we're seeing here, they have a majority, but they do have tails. So some of us are still struggling with some of these things, and understandably, I would say. For example, on this question, I easily let go of the old ways when they're not working anymore. Well, sometimes it's an attitude. I'm ready to let go, but sometimes it's not my choice. I have a team, I'm in an organization, there are policies, there are limitations to how much I can experiment. But I think we should focus also in ourselves, you know, what can we do to consider experimentation in a new way? And of course, we cannot experiment with real people and run, there's risks with that. But there's other ways to pilot ideas, to share, to slowly try new things and jump into these new waves of technology or practices. Or there's other ways to do it. And I think it's a practice. It's something we practice and we make intentionally, deliberately. We put ourselves a little bit out of our comfort zone to see new possibilities and maybe take them on board if we feel that they are beneficial for the target groups we work with. So yeah, just wanted to say that about this one.
Thanks a lot. Actually, the number 4 and number 5 are very interconnected in a way. Sometimes you need to let go of the old to create space for new. But at the same time, if you're very judgmental towards the new upfront, without trying, without exploring, then I think we will get in a stuck position. So the fifth one is a lot about what Sajana was also referring, also being ready, also and open to explore new things. I think what we have at the moment, which is not the future anymore, it's whole artificial intelligence in youth work. So it's also a little bit, how do you feel in your stomach when you say word artificial intelligence in youth work? You know, do you see it as a threat? Do you see it as an opportunity? Do you see it as a curious thing to explore? Do you like it? Do you hate it? It's a little bit like that. So there will be more new things coming in for sure in the following years. Ernestine, you have comment on that.
Yeah, and I think that the second scale and the fifth scale have a close correlation too, because if I'm very open to reflective on myself, I am at the same time reflective. I'm very open for new things, because young people, they change the world and it's happening right now. And if we not gonna forward for that, so that's a big discrepancy, but I think there is a close correlation of that. Thank you.
Well spotted. Thanks a lot for that. And as I said already, one level is individual level, but and the other level is the level of the field. And when we say about level of the field, we can speak about European level youth work, national, local, whatever the field is in this case. Thanks a lot. And last but not least, Anita, I leave it to you. The most exciting one.
I literally, I think it's the one that is more exciting in the sense that it stirs us the most, right? Emotionally. Do we worry, or are we excited, or maybe a bit of both, anxious about the future? And I think it's a very natural reaction of humans, is that depending on what we're talking about, we might have one or the other. I'm just taking your example. I'm also watching outside the window and it's snowing outside. And of course, if I'm geared up, if I have warm clothes, if I have good boots and a good beanie and nice gloves, I'm excited to go outside. But if I'm on my flip-flops and all I have is shorts and a t-shirt, then I'm probably a bit worried. And the youth work community in many places, unfortunately, still struggles for recognition, for basic things, for space, for a voice. And so when we're talking about, well, but there's new stuff coming on that you don't know about, a lot of us go like, well, I don't know if I can handle more. That is very, very natural reaction. And I link this with the comment that was left on the chat now, which is, what about when I'm kind of excited about the future and ready to try new things, but management isn't? And I could extend it to my colleagues aren't. And this is why we decided to do this webinar, exactly, to talk about it and to understand our role in supporting this change within the organizations, to support these conversations about the future to happen with our colleagues, so that we are all a little bit more open to consider the future, to talk about these emotions, to talk about this. We are worried. We are concerned about what's coming up. We see dangers everywhere. Let's talk about it. Let's put it on the table and let's have balanced conversations around this. And also let's think, how can we strategize around it? What can we do if it's in our power? What can we do? So I think this is the recognition that the emotional part of dealing with the future is a big part of the conversation. And I think we need to open space for that. And one last thing, think about this. If it's hard for us as adults to think about the future, imagine for a 15-year-old, right? Imagine for a 14-year-old or for an 18-year-old, like to consider all these things. While in one way they might be immersed in new technologies and that's easy to cope with, there's a lot of the inner mechanisms, coping mechanisms to deal with uncertainty, ambiguity, insecurity are not fully developed there, and we can be the adults that help them regulate themselves when thinking of the future. So I'm very happy to see this last one. A very exciting one.
Thanks a lot. Alessandro, you have a comment too.
Yes, I would say just some things that I just wanted to say some quick reason. I believe the second and the sixth scales are very connected for me, because today it's very important for me, in my opinion, to have an intercultural connection and practice in a globalized society. And unfortunately, we do not always see this. And we can see continuous and growing inequality between, for example, between rich and poor. And we should pay close attention to the fact that in today's society, everything happens very quickly, and that people who cannot reach their goals immediately are left behind. So I believe that we must always look for new horizon to solve present and future problems. So just this.
Yes, thanks a lot for reflection. And obviously, the scales, we wanted to use just an impulse for this to elicit this kind of reflections, and for sure there's more. So we would like to give you a little bit more time to share. So not just to sit on your, this in non-formal education, we have sometimes this expression, don't sit on your needs. I don't know if you have heard that before. Don't sit on your needs. If you haven't, and we feel the urge for people now to share some reflections too. So don't sit on your reflections. We would like to split you into small breakout rooms for about 12 minutes, and we continue at 11 with the second part of the webinar. And in this small breakout room moment, we would like you to think about a question that will be in the chat. And the question is, as youth workers or people interested in youth work, as we saw, there are many different roles in this webinar. So what are your thoughts and reflections about how to get future ready? And maybe the question next to it is, what can support this future readiness and what can block this future readiness? So 10 minutes or 12 minutes to share in the small breakout rooms, and then 11 o'clock we continue with the next exercise. Enjoy your sharing. Don't sit on your reflections.
Okay. He has joined. Welcome back. We hope we had a nice little chat. Was it okay? Did you manage to talk a little bit? All right. All right. Any insights that you shortly want to leave on the chat, please go ahead. There's a question here about the youth passport. Faris, we will answer that at the end. Okay, so we'll take that on in the end of the webinar. No worries. Any insights from the topic that you want to share, either vocalizing it or leaving it on the chat? Yes, Dragos.
So I have been involved in some projects a couple of years ago. Then I quit that and I continued IT work. And now I quit IT and I'm going back to youth work, hopefully.
Welcome back.
Thank you. And considering what I've been personally going through in the past few years, I can think about this question, like how can we get future ready in the context of youth work? Not just in the context of youth work, but how can we get future ready in general? And my idea is, I've seen a lot of answers in the beginning of the webinar, like, be a great leader and more energy and more. And actually, my approach is a bit different, like actually slow down a bit, take some time offline, if possible. Because my personal ideas about, I'm thinking a lot about technological advancement, especially since I worked in IT a little bit, and I've seen what impact it had on my own well-being. And I am a very firm advocate against social media, and at least to develop sort of discipline around it, not necessarily like, okay, let's just cut it out of our lives, because apparently it's not possible. as if, 20 years ago, how were people living? But anyway, so I'm thinking like the first and most important for me is just to build resilience and to be able to find some ways in which you can discipline in such a way that you don't get distracted all the time. So cultivating mental well-being is a great start, because if we are not well, we won't be able to get any kind of constructive output to anyone, especially in youth work. Young people are kind of all over the place. I mean, very energetic, very excited, and to be able to deal with all that energy as a youth worker, you need to have a pretty firm core, let's say, like that. And yeah, that's where I would start from. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing. Thank you for that. I think this is. I think this insight is so interesting, because many times there is this tendency to believe, well, to get future ready, I need to learn a bunch of new things. I need to learn to do youth work online and be an expert on all these technological tools. And maybe some of us think, well, maybe we need to create a balance here and get off the online and help young people also find themselves as humans beyond technology, etc. And we will all have different thoughts about this. How can we support a transition into the future that is as smooth as possible, as kind as possible, and with better outcomes as possible, right? So there's probably all of us are thinking in different ways in this. And I see more insights here in the chat. For example, well, questions. How can we do this without the recognition and without the funding? So the importance of recognition and funding into getting us ready to the future and moving forward in a positive, optimistic way. The importance of education and training of youth workers. So a place where they can develop the skills that will enable them to meet the future, like Darko was saying, to meet the future from a more balanced place. Eda is saying that they talked about the ability to listen to young people and sensing the realities that are happening at this moment, and also strengthening ethics, values to contribute positively. I'm not going to read the whole comments. I'm sorry for that, but just to summarize a little bit, to realize the value of social health and well-being in youth work practice. Again, in line a little bit with what Dragos was saying, the importance of well-being. And this has actually also was pointed out by the researchers on the last webinar, how well-being is important and will be becoming more and more important. Critical, but also positive thinking about the future in youth work. How can we strike this balance? I'm a very big fan of this little point. I think balanced conversations are so important. And also considering positive sides of AI, etc. So just before giving the word, Darko, this is where we're going next. We are going in the next exercise to try to dig into this kind of thinking, which is looking forward. What can we do now? What should we be thinking of now? But before that, Darko.
Just a quick intervention. Thanks, Dragos, for inspiration. Yes, I think when we put scale, I think I will maybe repeat myself a little bit now, because I'm aware pretty much when we put scales like we did, it sounds completely like individual challenge. Like I need to be better, I need to be faster, I need to be more this or more of that. And that's just one part of the story. And it's not about making this pressure more, knowing actually that youth workers are under pressure already. So it's not about putting more pressure. So I think it's more about finding different ways. And maybe these different ways are also to look at these questions more collectively. So not purely from individual perspective. One of the researchers we had in the Future Foresight research that we interviewed, she speaks about communities of care. So how can we create communities of care where actually resilience is a collective thing, not just individual survival mechanism? And thanks. I just wanted to reply to that. Thanks a lot.
So thank you for also all the insights that are coming on the chat. I will recommend that if you can give a look, because there's so many nice different perspectives coming there about important areas, important dimensions of this competence building to face the future, to look into the future and consider it in the present. To keep doing that, I propose a bit of a kind of a humorous way to start, and then we can go as deep or as shallow as you want. But the first step will be kind of a humorous one. I'm going to share with you a scenario. So this is a scenario that is based on current trends, but like we said, we don't know if it's going to happen. It's very possible that it won't. But let's consider this scenario. Let's consider that somebody told us with a magic wand, this is happening. And here's the scenario. I'm going to read it loud. Bionic humans. In 15 years, meaning 2039, humans have new bionic body parts. Adding extra arms, legs, or fingers is now the norm. I see some people going like, oh my God. Some people make poor choices when it comes to adding features to their bodies. Because of this, youth workers provide guidance to young people about what bionic parts they should consider and which ones to avoid, even if they're trending. So let's imagine this is a scenario. This is going to happen. Let's imagine, just imagine that a fairy told you this is going to happen. If you knew this, and I want you to write now on the chat, write down what should youth workers be doing now to get ready for this, or to prevent this, or to prepare for this, and be humorous. This is an energizer. This is not a serious part of the exercise. That will come after. So now let's be funny. You're allowed to make all kinds of proposals. What do you think we should be doing to either prepare or prevent this future, depending on how desirable you think it is? Let the fun begin. Running away. That's the first good one. Ask AI what to do, of course. Be informed about bionic parts, pros and cons. All right, let's start looking into biotechnology, something that it is happening already. What else? What else? Let's be prepared, but how? Start dreaming. Start dreaming of all the body parts you can get. Okay. Make a tier list. Oh, now it's coming. Make evolutionary biologists. I don't know what CPPL means. Maybe somebody can help me.
Cool. I wanted to say cool.
Cool again. Make evolutionary biologists cool again. Encourage people to get a second brain. Very good. Make scientific research on the chances and risks. Okay, that's actually a good one. Start with body parts tattoos. So somebody is advocating for the progressive jumping into the future. Slowly get into it. First the tattoo, then you get the body part. Role modeling. Have a light that comes on when a young person is upset and needs support. So that would be the body part, maybe promoted by youth workers, just kind of a little light we could see. Okay, people can imagine a lot of things. We want ideas. Merge with other life forms like cats. Look at that. There's a cat lover in the room. Teach more about biology in the school. Tell people not to get 2 left feet. That's not nice in the dance floor. That's true. A heart that doesn't break. Oh, a heart that doesn't break. Look at that. Introduce discussion panels. Spread awareness about the harms. Slovenians have 20 fingers already. Okay. How would this be sustainably, ecologically? So, okay, a lot of different possibilities here. So like I said, this is just the warm up. This is the warm up. But you get the gist of it. So the idea is that we can look into the future, consider a possible scenario. We don't know if it's going to happen or not, but we force ourselves to think, if this would happen, what should I be doing in the next 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years to get prepared? Prepared might mean to prevent this from happening if it clashes with my values, or to support this direction if I think this can actually be an opportunity. And of course, then here values play a big role. So I invite you to read all the ideas. There's many funny ones there. I think humor is always a good way to manage all these complex emotions. But let's go then to 3 also possible scenarios. But first, Snejana.
Thank you, Anita. Just a reflection again. Considering our ideas, the question that I have is the relationship between the youth worker and young person is going to be changed as well, or how youth workers are doing and working with young people will remain the same, right? Regardless of this crazy, technological or whatever changes, right? So is the youth worker again going to be the role model, the advisory person, or, somebody, the trustworthy person, and so on and so forth? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and I think it links very well with what Darko said in the beginning. Many times thinking of the future requires us thinking that maybe our identity will suffer some changes as well. Not necessarily negative changes, but they might shift as well. Yes, it's a very good question. Very good question. Okay, so now the next step, we will going to consider 3 scenarios. These are also based on current trends and also based, but they're not predictions. So I want to be very clear about this. These are stories we created on an afternoon. These are not predictions. They're just possibilities, okay? Here's the first one. I'm going to read the 3, and then I'll let you know what is the invitation of the activity. So the first one, there will be less young people. In 15 years from now, there are much less young people in Europe. So many youth centers became community centers and serve all generations. Okay, we already have community centers, we know that, but what we're saying here is that youth centers will transform into community centers. That's one scenario. Another scenario for the same time frame, 15 years, the formal education system as we know it no longer exists. Global online education platforms now certify all kinds of learning experiences, both formal and non-formal, and I would add maybe informal, for all ages. So there's no school, maybe there's no kindergarten, maybe there's no university, or maybe nothing of this is just obligatory. It changed. It's something else right now. And the third one, AI, artificial intelligence, is the boss. So in 15 years, due to continuous conflicts and environmental crisis, youth workers are focused in building skills of activism, participation, and dialogue for AI-created educational programs. So meaning AI are developing the educational programs, not humans. Maybe they're managing them as well. Youth workers are doing the direct work. That's the proposition here, okay? That's the proposal here. So first of all, looking at these 3 scenarios, let's call them 1, 2, and 3, okay? So less young people is 1. No more degrees is 2. AI is the boss is 3. 1, 2, 3. Which one for you, and I know this is not an easy question, but let's just warm up to considering these scenarios. Which one for you would be less desirable? The one you would prefer to avoid? Drago says 3, 3. You can write it on the chat. Somebody said 1, 3, 3, 3, 3, 2, 3, 3, 3, 3. But it's coming. 3, 2. Because we have trustees. Some people, all of them. I'm guessing, my mathematic sensing is not very good, but I think a lot of people said the third one, right? I think AI is it's a scary, being led by AI is very scary, right? There's a lot of issues there to consider. Okay. To which one, 1, 2, or 3, do you feel currently more prepared to face? Which one do you feel more prepared to face as a youth worker, or part of the youth work community in some capacity? The second, the first, the second. Wow, clear correlation, of course. The one we feel less prepared for is the one we fear the most. That's to be expected. And the second one kind of hints that there's an opportunity there for formal and non-formal to be on the same level. So that's kind of a little hopeful site there. All right. And yes, one is already happening. So this is interesting. Depending where we are in our context, some of these we will recognize. We will say, well, I kind of see examples already of this in some way, or I see signs that this is happening in my community. And for other people in other communities, it's very far, the same scenario, it's really far. We can't imagine it had happened. We haven't seen any signs in reality around us that this will take place. It will vary depending where we are. So here's the proposition now, which is the second part of this exercise of trying to build in us this capacity to consider the future in our present. We're going to share with you a link to a Padlet. This will go into the chat. And there we invite you, and we put a little bit of music, and we'll give you a few minutes, maybe 3-4 minutes. We invite you to write down some actions we could be doing, or youth workers, maybe you're not a youth worker, so think like one. Some actions youth workers can do now to prepare or prevent these futures. So it's just a brainstorming of ideas, and it's already here. The link in the Padlet is already in the chat. What actions could a youth worker consider taking now? Now means in the present, 2024 or 2025, let's say in this next month's year, to prevent or prepare, or what they need to change for this scenario. So what actions could a youth worker consider taking now to prevent, prepare, or change this scenario? And now this is not a joke anymore, so no more of the funny, well, they can be funny, but let's take it seriously. And you can take it as deeply philosophical or as pragmatic as you want. What could we be doing to be getting ready for these possibilities? Okay, so a few minutes, write down. You can write more than one idea on more than one column. If you have any issues using the Padlet, let us know. And we will give you a few minutes to do this. I'm just checking how are we with time to tell you exactly how many minutes we have. We have like 4 minutes. Okay. I think a lot of great ideas have been added to the Padlet. I'm going to ask Sabrina to share the Padlet if it's possible, just for us to have kind of a global vision of it. We're not going to go one by one. The Padlet will stay here for you to revisit after the webinar. I was reading it a little bit, going through it, and I was thinking, oh my God, I wish this was a real life conversation. We could be sitting, the traditional youth worker in me would be like, I wish we would all in a circle and we would be sharing these ideas, because there's so much in here. Very interesting kind of little things I noticed. So again, for some of these things, some of us are sharing, I see this already. This is already happening, or I'm already doing this. I'm already getting ready for this because it is a reality in the context where I work. Some people are seeing the interconnections of these possible scenarios. For example, if there's yet less young people, then naturally a lot of schools close. Naturally, we have to rethink the system just because of sheer numbers, right? And also another thing I noticed is how the third one, the AI one, is so interesting, in how for some of us, I would say it's a bit more of a divisive in terms of opinions, which some of us are saying, well, we need to stop being afraid. We need to learn about it, and then we use it for good. We use it for to support our values. And some of us are saying, well, we need to start getting out of this and helping people to go back to their human nature, human connection, because AI can't replicate that yet. So, so interesting to see the diversity of opinions. I would like us to have a small conversation about this. We only have a few minutes. We know how webinars are limited, but to consider first of all, and maybe you can write this on the chat, what do you notice in yourself emotionally when you are considering that you have to deal with these scenarios, right? Because this exercise invites us for that. You have to deal with this future. How are you going to deal with it? What emotions get stirred inside? Positive, negative, nobody's judging anyone. Just notice and write on the chat. What emotions were stirred inside you when you were writing these proposals, when you had to think about this possibility? Pretty cool, curious. The need for cooperation, and this is interesting. A lot of the comments are about we need to start cooperating with schools, with teachers, with people in technology, with the elderly. Maybe we need to get out of our bubble a little bit more. Okay. Excitement, but also anxiety, resistance. Very honest one. And I think a lot of us also feel that. Fear and hope. What else? What is coming? Exciting about what can be opportunities, but worry as well. The possibility of social cohesion, sustainability. But what are emotions? What do we feel when we are put in this position? Oh, we feel that maybe we lack information. We feel a bit challenged, excited. We feel we need to be creative so we can lead change. Very good. Fatigue. Where to get information, where do I get ready for this? Nervousness, feeling a bit wary. Very good. I wanted us to notice this because, as somebody just mentioned, if we are to lead change a little bit in our bubble, maybe in our organization, maybe in our own lives but if in our circles we are to lead change, then we need to understand that we have these emotions about the future and others too. So if you are a very excited person about the future and curious and very willing to have these conversations, maybe you need to acknowledge that others probably feel resistance. It's not an attack to you. It's not that they don't want to see the future. It's a natural human reaction, and we need to support each other in that space. And if you're one that is feeling resistant and wary and worried, and that kind of is making it hard to see possibilities, maybe know that other people are feeling a bit more comfortable in those possibilities, and join them and have a conversation and help balance the conversation. Be the one that maybe not the one that says, no, this is not possible, no, this is not happening, but hey, think also about this. Let's consider that. We also need that in balanced conversations about the future. So my first kind of thing I wanted to point out is that all these emotions are part of change processes. And as future is coming and change is coming, these are all natural emotions that we need to embrace and create safe spaces for. And I know we're used to this, but sometimes when it comes to the future, it's hard to let go of our own emotional space. So to learn to open up a little bit there can be interesting. That would be one of my first questions. By the way, if there's interesting things happening on the chat, I'm going to ask my colleagues to help me out because I might not be seeing them as fast as I wished, as I'm also looking for different questions here to ask the group. A second question for you that I wanted to ask is, what ethical considerations emerge when you look into these future scenarios? What ethical issues kind of popped in your mind first? So I'm asking about values that probably came to the forefront when you were doing this task. For example, somebody is proposing cooperation between sectors. That's on itself kind of an ethical issue. Like, we need to cooperate with other sectors. We need to collaborate with other professionals. That probably comes from a place where we understand that our knowledge is not enough and our action separately from other sectors is not enough. We need this collaboration. So what other kind of ethical considerations, other values came up in your head when you were doing this small exercise? What did you notice? Okay. the equality issue, right? How equality or inequality is going to be in the future, how that becomes a worry, right? Surviving instinct, that's a good one. All values are being reconsidered. So it's like this shake to the core, right? We get into this survival mode, like, oh my God, is this happening? The issue of inclusion, especially in adult-centric societies, yes. Appreciation. Are young people leading towards these scenarios? This is a very good question. Is this led by adults? Do young people have a voice in this? How can we maybe give them a voice in this? Privacy aspect. How the youth work ethics are not being widely recognized and established among youth work practitioners and other professions. So maybe about clarity also, and about learning about the ethics behind youth work. I would say this is an interesting aspect of considering the future. It helps us go back to revisit our values and the ethics of our work. The fundamentals of youth work need to be maintained. Space for youth expression, for well-being, for critical thinking, how all of these things are still, or more than ever, very relevant. The question today was, I will say it exactly as it was because I know you're taking notes. What ethical considerations emerge when we are planning these actions for these future scenarios? Okay, and I have 2 more questions. The next one, I'm going to write it here to help us navigate this. What skills or knowledge do you feel you need to develop? Now it's personally, right? So individually, for yourself, what skills or knowledge do you feel you need to develop further to effectively navigate similar future scenarios, whatever is coming ahead of us? What skills, knowledge, attitudes do you need to be developing personally? Compassion, hope, advocacy, networking, resilience, empathy, AI, critical thinking, computer skills, flexibility. Again, technology, empathy, empathetic cooperation, politicizing, strengthen our own voice, project management, lifelong learning, yeah, communication. Emotional management, teamwork, very good. Patience, unlearning, collaboration across teams, standing back for youth influences. I'm imagining this is kind of letting ourselves being influenced by young people and their needs and wants. To revise our needs and skills, to have a self-assessment on what is the set of skills that I need actually. Learn Spanish. And I'm writing my next question. But you can keep them coming. A strong reflective practice, negotiation and mediation skills. Be in the moment, surrender of the old ways which are not working. Nonviolent communication. And I think we can go on and on. It's good to recognize that we also need to learn and unlearn things in order to get ready for the futures that are coming. I think this is a great strength of our field. I think youth workers, as far as my perspective goes, youth workers see themselves as these flexible professionals that can lean into different needs and go and learn about it, so we support the young people. And I think that strength, that capacity to learn, unlearn, relearn, that is precious when it comes to consider the future. So I think that's a big strength we have as a field. Imagination, yes, to be able to imagine futures that don't exist, optimal future, desired futures. Creativity, calm creativity, love that. Okay, one last question, because our time is almost running up. We have 20 minutes left of our webinar. This is an interesting one. What can we as a field, so the youth work field, can do? What can we do? I'm sorry, I wrote this now and I missed the word there. What can we do as a field, youth work field, to get ready for the future and support each other? So related to the previous question, what can I learn, relearn, and learn? How can we act as a field, as a community? What can we do to get ready and to support each other in these transitions? Meet in person as often as possible, interact a lot, dialogue, yeah. Taking part in this webinar, check. Meet, talk, share, cooperation, networking, being informed, maybe allowing for information to flow better between all our colleagues, different actors in the field, having deep conversations, listen to each other, go into nature, cooperate, collaborate, support in actions. Gordana, maybe you want to be more clear about what you mean with that. It sounds good, but I'm not sure if I understand it fully. To foster an open-minded attitude, to hold youth forums, organize more webinars like this, volunteering, learn about the sector. Darko is sharing, performance culture may create shame of not being good enough. How to change that culture? Great topic. Connecting the dots, more academy. You're very kind. Supporting action, so travel to each other and participate in projects directly. Okay, so to take action, and in this cooperation, laugh together, travel. Create small core groups so we can support each other in smaller, more intimate groups. We need to start thinking of degrowth economics. That's a whole area of learning there, together with regeneration. Understand policies and politics. Very good, very, very good. Thank you so much for your thoughts on this. So I know this is a little bit of a silent conversation, a silent sharing here about all these topics. But I think it is interesting that we can, and they keep coming, thank you so much. It is interesting to think together about these things. So when we talk about getting ready, getting future ready, we're talking about conversations like this, where we consider future scenarios, when we anticipate possibilities, and we use that anticipation, preferably based on signs that we see in reality, so based on trends, on our capacity to analyze the world as it is unfolding right now, and we take those insights and we use them as information when we are strategizing, meaning when we are developing educational programs, when we are choosing the priorities of our next year's activity plan, that we use that when we hear our young people and we start connecting the dots of what they are saying, with the trends that or the evidence we are reading from research. And that we have this kind approach that I am so happy to see here, that we are honest in saying, well, I'm worried, I don't feel prepared, I'm concerned, but also to say, okay, I can maybe look for help, I need to collaborate, I can create projects that help young people and us create a different scenario, one that is hopeful, that is a bit more optimistic. So this is what we wanted to tackle in this webinar, to have this kind of place where we can talk about this and consider possibilities as a precursor then to think more realistically, what can we do? And that you will do in your organizations, in your context, and we will do together in the Academy in May. Now, an invitation, this kind of exercises we did here, the first Menti, where you were rating yourselves in those scales, and now looking into scenarios. This is something you can use with your colleagues, with young people, and help them have these conversations with you. This is our invitation. Try to find exercises, moments, activities, ways to have these reflections and deal with these emotions and support each other with your own circles. I think this is the invitation we want to leave you with. And for that, there is more resources you can use. So we're going to give you a list of little other resources you can go into to find more knowledge or more reflection prompts or concrete activities that you can lead with the young people or the people you work with. Is that okay? Does that sound good? Yep. All right. So Darko, do you want to take us after that?
Sure, thanks a lot. I was enjoying a lot the conversation in the Padlet and in the chat. I really felt not just reading, but very lively going around. And for me now, what becomes clear that when we think about the future, it gives us impulse not just to think about future, but it actually gives us impulse to think about how we are doing at the present. And it's clear that we need more conversations. One will for sure happen in the Academy in May, but I think we need more conversations at local level, at national levels, at organizational levels, group levels. So how we're doing at the present, and also how we relate to future. And maybe the tools that we want to share with you now, I think Sabrina, you can share the slide. It's just a little selection of things that we can maybe suggest you to look at. The first one comes more from UNESCO, and they developed something what they call Future Literacy Lab or laboratories. It's a methodology. I think it's very close to design thinking methodology for people who know design thinking. It's a little bit collective, co-creative environments for young people to think about future, consider how this might be tackled in a practical way. So in case you, for example, looking at organizing some events where you gather young people to consider how they relate to future, how they imagine future, how they project maybe possible futures, this could be interesting, I think, resource to look at. The second thing is, it's a book by Jane McGonigal. Jane is interesting. Actually, we looked now during the Future Foresight research for the Academy, we looked a lot at the different resources and different books, and we found Jane's book quite lively and intriguing, and it starts with the question, when does the future start? I think it's an interesting question to ask yourself. It's to ask young people, to ask your colleagues. So when you consider future, when does the future start? And I don't want to make the spoiler now, so what Jane says about that, but look at Jane's book. And also Jane has a, I think, free course on Coursera about introducing the future-oriented thinking or future exploration thinking. So this could be more building, let's say, understanding about how future thinking skills, it's more for you in a way, a little bit, if you want to go deeper into this. Probably there are many other books that actually look in the same direction or in similar ways. maybe for some people who are more into systems change, maybe looking at Theory U of Otto Scharmer might be interesting also, and many others. But Jane is quite practical and I think hands-on. And at the website, you can also look at her speeches and lots of resources. So explore Jane. And Anita, maybe you can say a couple of words about future frequencies.
Yes, just to let you know, the links are being shared on the chat, but we will share with you also this presentation and we will add the links there. So don't worry about it, you will get them too. So Future Frequency is a project by Sitra, an organization, an agency from Finland, who has been thinking about the future from a long time ago, from the past. And so they've developed a workshop to support young people to think about the future with youth workers. And this is free online. We will share the link as well. And it's already kind of designed, so you can adapt it to the time and the resources and the group you have. And it's a great way to start as well. And in that note, I'm going to share screen. This was not planned. So Sabrina, I'm just letting you know if I can. I'm going to share the screen now and stop sharing this one, if that's okay. Just give me a second. Yes. On that note, I wanted to show you something else. So Sitra also developed very recently the Cards of Hope, which is a game. It's a card game, very simple, where players can imagine future scenarios. This card exists physically. So if you are in Finland, you can order it, I think for free, but they don't send it overseas. But also it's a digital game. So this means that you can also play online with the cards. Okay, you don't have to have the physical game to play. Very interesting, very simple, and it gets players to create future scenarios, take a role of a single mom, take the role of a youth worker, take a role of a politician in the future, and it's a great conversation starter. So very simple tool that you can use with your colleagues. I highly recommend. And another tool that exists, and this is a project I've been involved in, it's a MOOC, so it's an online course for free on the HOP platform, you might know it, and it's about innovation for youth workers and youth organizations. So it's focused on innovation, but it covers a lot of things about future thinking. For example, how can you help young people be aware of trends around them? And just to give you an example of resources there, you have, for example, also a session designed about helping young people explore the future and see trends around them and understand what is a trend. That is not about fashion, about t-shirts and pants and sneakers, but what is a societal trend and why do they matter and how can they pay attention to them? So this course is another resource you can use. Don't worry about the links. We will add them as well later on for you. So these are all possibilities. Yeah, Darko?
Yeah, maybe one addition, I think in the chat, Usha saying, yeah, the also building on the reference to Jane. So maybe you can also look at this website that Usha is suggesting. It looks like a really interesting resource to look at too. So look at the global youth skills research and the toolkit related to that. It's in the chat too.
Fantastic. So there is a bit of information sharing here. Somebody was saying we need to share information. Well, here's a bit of information to help you get started in reflecting and sharing with others. We're getting to the end of our webinar. So your mics are off, but you can do a global, so you'll feel in your faces. So for the last 10 minutes, we have just a few information to give you. You will get an email from us with all this information. So this will be available. Also, the recording of this session, if you want to send it to some colleagues, it will be available on the page of the Academy. For those who cannot take part of the Academy, the face-to-face event that is taking place from 14 to 17 May, know that some of the sessions will be streamed. So between the 14th and the 17th of May, you're going to have live streaming of some of the sessions of the Academy if you want to take part. The program of those sessions is going to be released next week. So if you follow the Academy social media channels on Facebook, for example, you will see it there, what times the sessions will be streaming online live, so you can join. So that's good news. And also know that there will be a third webinar like this one after the Academy. This webinar will take place on the 6th of June on the same schedule. And it will be also related to the Academy itself. So what happened there, what was shared there. The registrations are not open yet, so you cannot apply yet, but after the Academy, it will be promoted. Again, follow the social media of the Academy and you will get all the information you need. So streaming sessions during 14 to 17 May, put it on your agenda. Next webinar, 6th of June at 10 o'clock CET, the same time as we're doing it now. Put it there as well. And about the question on Youth Pass, Sonia, can you tell us how the Youth Passes will work?
Thanks, Anita. Yes. So first of all, I would just like to recall that you will get this email from me next week, or maybe a few days later, next week or the week afterwards, with the outcomes of this webinar. So also we said resources, we will share them with you. I mean, the links and all of these kinds of things you will receive by email. And there we will also recall once more the dates and of the next events. We will also share with you the visual summary of this webinar, different kinds of outcomes, an article about it, and the recording, all of these different types of things. About the Youth Pass, yes, we were thinking in order to keep it manageable, we will issue Youth Passes to those of you who would like to receive them at the end of the whole series of events. So we will not give them after each webinar to people, even though you might only attend one event and not all of them. But we will do it as a package at the end. That means in June, basically after the last webinar took place. And at that time, I mean, we will recall again how it works. You will receive an email again from us. Basically, we will ask you to let us know if you would like to receive a Youth Pass and to indicate once more where you participated, so what we can mention in it, in which parts of which webinar or maybe the live streaming you participated, and we will make a Youth Pass available accordingly. If there is something really urgent about it, if you have a particular need to have something now at this moment, just send me an email, and we can reply. I suppose that will concern a limited number of people for whom this is really urgent, and we can handle it flexibly earlier.
About futures of youth work, this study will also be published after the Academy, so this will be released later on. And now we just ask you, if you can, to leave us your feedback. So we're going to leave a little one last Menti link here and invite you to just leave us your feedback about this session and help us improve the next ones, and let us know what you enjoyed and what could work better for you. What are your ideas and suggestions? There you go. You can again use either the QR code or the link that was shared in the chat. We really appreciate your feedback. So a little bit of time for that. All right. So we are in the last 2 minutes closing our webinar. Thank you so much for being with us. Check in with your body again. Check if you have a body. You have a body? Is it still there? Are you still caring for it? Like nurturing it? Maybe you're hungry, maybe you're thirsty. Remember to give it what it needs once you're out of this webinar. Maybe go outside a little bit, and, have a nibble on something. Thank you so much for coming.